Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we're doing, well, it's my most anticipated video to film. So it's my most anticipated releases. I am genuinely actually excited to film this. That sounds bad when I say it like that, but in general, I love like the end of year stuff, you know, 10 books I have to read next year, goals, anticipated releases, best, worst, ranking all of my books. I love these. I love the end of the year. I love those videos. I love watching them. I love making them. I love a good list, you know? I am so excited for so many of these books. So excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I recently spoke about this in my like reacting to the Goodreads winners. I think this year was a small bit of a slower year just from like my favorite authors personally, and also my reading in general this year just has not been great. And even my anticipated releases, a lot of them I just didn't love, or it was like I was anticipating by them, but they're not like, oh my god, I'm so excited, I cannot wait, I must read this as soon as I get it kind of books. So it just felt like a bit of a meh year. Whereas this year, looking at like these anticipated releases, I have faith. I could be completely wrong though. I've been burned before. So before I actually like dive into like the anticipated releases that are coming out next year, there is just like three nearly like honorable mentions I want to kind of talk about. So the first one is Lightborn by Rebecca Zahavi, and this is actually already out, but I am waiting for the paperback. That's basically what all of these are kind of. First book is The Collarbound, and the second one is The Hawkling, and I really enjoy these. These are both like really high 4 stars. They are not the most plot-filled books, but something about her writing is just really engaging to me, and I really enjoy the characters. I really enjoy the world building. As I said, it's not like edge of your seat kind of action, but I really do enjoy every other element, which kind of makes up for it, and I'm just like really into these stories. And the third book came out I think sometime in the middle of last, and so the paperback will be out in 2025, and obviously since I have the first two in paperback, I want to read the third one in paperback. So I am anticipating the paperback, but I know that the book is already technically out, so I can't really include it in my anticipated releases, but I do want to just mention that I am anticipating the paperback. It kind of follows two characters. So we have Isha, and she arrives at like this mage's school, but she has a tattoo which kind of brands her as like a bit of an outcast, and she doesn't remember how or why she has this. And then she goes to a tavern and she kind of meets our other main character, who is Tatters, and he has a collar which marks him as one of the collar-bound. And then the two of them kind of might have things in their past that are in common. The next one, again, similar story as Lightborn, is going to be The Will of the Many by James Islington. And so again, I'm pretty sure I put this actually on my this year one because I thought the paperback would come out this year, but it did not. I have read the Lycanius trilogy by him and I did really enjoy it. I gave it a 4, a 3, and a 4, I believe, and overall really loved it. And I have heard absolutely rave reviews from like everyone about The Will of the Many, and it's just so loved. Everyone loves it. I did actually put it on my top 10 priority books to read in 2025, so hopefully that bodes well. As I said, supposedly the paperback is coming out. I hope it does, and I do know that the sequel is gonna come out, and I don't know, maybe if I'm like absolutely obsessed with it, I'll like buy the ebook or something so I can immediately continue. But for now, we're just putting The Will of the Many on here. Know that this follows, I think, a teenage boy, and he is in a like Roman inspired world, kind of going to this academy, and because his adoptive father has like some sort of a mission for him to complete, and I do believe the magic system is a pyramid scheme. And then the last one that is kind of within this like kind of different because it's not actually a paperback release, it's a re-release. It's a traditional published release of a book that I already love, and that is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. I actually don't, it's up there, right there at the start of this year. It is, spoiler alert for, you know, next month. It is one of my favorite books of the year. Really enjoyed it, and it has actually gotten picked up traditionally. Obviously, I think most of T. Kingfisher's early works were all self-published, and you know, I feel like maybe it was like 2 or 3 years ago was when her stuff started to get published traditionally. Now they're kind of going back through all of her backlist stuff and publishing that traditionally, and Sword Heart is one of them. They have revealed the cover, which is so beautiful. Like, I will probably be buying it with the brand new cover because it is gorgeous. This is a fantasy romance, and we follow a woman, and she is a widow, and after she was widowed, she was taken in by her, well, her dead husband's like family uncle, and she kind of took care of this uncle in his older days while he was getting sick and ill and weaker. And when he dies, he leaves everything to her, and the family is not happy about this. And so they have basically decided there's no way that she is getting this money. This money is getting kept in the family. And so they bring along, I can't remember if it's a cousin or his brother or something, but either way, and they're like, you will marry him. And she's like, no. And so they lock her in her room like she's a child, despite the fact she is not. And then she decides there's only one way out, and so she grabs a sword off the wall, and when she unsheaths the sword, a man appears out of it, and the two of them then set off on a bit of a quest to make sure that she gets to keep her own money. And it's just very humorous. I just had a great time. Like, it was just one of those moments. It was exactly what I needed in that moment, and I just ate it up.
Hello, so editing Rebecca here because some developments. I do have one more, I guess, to add on to this, very much connected to Sword Heart, which is Clockwork Boys by T. Kingfisher, is also getting republished. And I'm very confused, and I would really like if somebody would help me figure it out, because I feel like I'm just being stupid. I remember seeing, like, ages ago that Sword Heart and the Paladins series was being picked up traditionally, which, truth, because we saw the lovely edition of Sword Heart, we haven't gotten any covers for Paladins Grey series yet. And so I went and I found the Reddit post and then the bookseller article that says this. But it's Orbit buys 5 books from T. Kingfisher, but it's being published by Bramble, which is Tor. And I'm like, Tor isn't the same as Orbit. They don't have the same parent company. I'm pretty sure. Do they? So it's Rebecca about like 20 minutes later. I think I may have figured it out. So Sword Heart, that green, teal, bluey, whatever color you want to call it, hardback is being published by Bramble, which is like Tor's romantasy imprint. Oh my god. Words are really hard, guys. And that is coming out in, I think, February. And that is the US. And then that pink cover, so it's basically the same cover, which is why I think it was confusing me, was because it was the same cover, just different colors. But that pink cover is actually the UK edition, which is being published by Orbit. So that is what was tripping me up, was the fact that they have the same cover. But I went onto the Waterstones page and it says publisher Little Brown Book Group, which, if you didn't know, Orbit is under that. So that is coming out in June. I don't know whether anything, like, I don't know whether the Saint of Steel series, which is the Paladins Grey series, has been picked up in America. I don't know if the Clockwork Boys series has been picked up in America. They are all part of the same world. But I do know that Sword Heart has been, and that will be coming out in February. And then, as I said, the UK edition, which is that pink cover, I think it's only coming out in paperback, and that is coming out in June. So, you're welcome. I figured it out. And nobody cares except me. And this also messes up my yearly goals, because I didn't count any of these as traditionally published, even though I read the self-published versions, because I was like, oh, they have been picked up when I'm reading them. So, like, I felt like I was pushing it. And so I did count the Clockwork Boys and the Wonder Engine, because they were not picked up with the others ones, despite the fact that they take place in the same world. I do actually recommend you read the Clockwork Boys and Wonder Engine if you want, like, the full world stuff. If you only care about the romance stuff, then you can read any of them in any order, really. But if you want the whole world, I do recommend actually reading that duology first. But they weren't picked up, and so I was like, okay, they can count. But now I'm like, well, I'm still counting them. I don't care, because I didn't know they were being picked up. But anyway, but Titan is actually the one that is publishing the Clockwork Boys. And from what I can see, they, like, on Titan's Instagram post, they say UK edition. So I'm not sure, is it coming out in America, if you're going to have to buy it from, like, a UK bookseller. I don't know. And, like, as I said, I had not heard anything about this being picked up until I saw that Instagram post. And I will say, again, such a beautiful cover, such a lovely upgrade. And I think that is coming out the 18th of March. So early enough in the year.
So now actually into the books that will be being released next year. And I will say, I'm going to try and put these in order, but honestly, I did not write them down in order. I did write the dates. So if I miss one, don't be mad at me, okay? And some of them don't actually have dates. I'm just, like, guessing that they're coming out this year. First, we have Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear. Also, I will not know the synopsis for half of these. I'm very much one of them, like, oh, it's a continuation of a book, the series, or it's a, you know, author I love that is releasing a new book. And I'm like, okay, I want to read it right now. Can't remember which character this follows. I think it's one of like the, well, it's obviously one of the watery ones. So this is the God knows how many book in the Wayward Children series, which is by Shauna McGuire. So in the world, basically, children can go through magical doors, which will bring them to a world that fits them perfectly. And sometimes they end up back in the real world, and it can be very hard for them to adjust. And they go to Eleanor West's home, and they learn to adjust, or they try and get back to their world. And obviously it kind of goes back and forth between the real world and taking place in these worlds. So this one should be one in a world. Then up next we have Emily Wilde and Compendium of Lost Tales, I think. That's a long one. And this is coming out in February, I believe, though I will probably wait for the paperback to come out in like January, February-ish, and usually by like October, November, the paperback is out. So I do have the paperbacks for the first two, and so I will probably be waiting until the paperback of the third one as well. This series, it follows Emily Wilde, and she is a scholar of fairies, and she sets off in the first book to learn about these wild ones in a very like cold climate. And then while she's there, the locals don't really like her very much at first. And then her annoying co-worker, Wendell Bambleby, shows up, and he begins to get on her nerves even more. But the two of them end up kind of working together in the end. So I gave the first book a 4 stars and the second book a 4 stars. I didn't like the second one just as much as I liked the first one, but I did overall enjoy it. And I think the third one, this is the final one. So I'm excited to see how it will all play out, because there is kind of an overarching theme, and I imagine we will get a conclusion to that. Then in March we have The Tomb of Dragons by Katherine Addison, and so this is the third and maybe final book in, I don't know actually what the series is called. Is it just The Witness for the Dead? We have that there. So this is a spin-off to The Goblin Emperor. I feel like most people might be a bit more familiar with Goblin Emperor, and that is just very much a very like slice of life, but instead of it just being like a boring, you know, job, he's the Empire, but it's very much like the day-to-day runnings. And then in The Witness for the Dead, it's a spin-off with a character that we met in the first one, and he is a witness for the dead. So it's not quite as mundane, but also like she has a way of writing even like this very magical job in a very like, yeah, it is what it is, it's just a job kind of a way, which sounds boring, but it really works for me in kind of like a weird, fun way. Basically, a witness for the dead can like touch the dead and kind of see their last memory, and usually from this, either like if it's a murder, he kind of tries to help in the investigation, or maybe he's trying to find this person's family or anything like that. And the second book ended in a very interesting way, and like I thought that that was it, because that was the only one for so long, and it was only a couple months ago where I saw that there was a third book coming, and I was like, oh my god, thank god, because I was like technically you could kind of end it there. It's a bit open-ended, but you could, but no, we're getting another one. And also in March we have Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. Obviously John Green, I feel like most people know him for his YA stuff, you know, The Fault in Our Stars, Looking for Alaska, all of those big ones. And I have been watching his YouTube videos and reading his books since I was a young teen. And if you didn't know, I think 2 years ago now, no, yes, 2 years ago now, my favorite book of the year was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, which is his nonfiction essay collection where he ranks just random things that have come about because of the Anthropocene, which is the age that we are currently in. I just loved it. I think it was both like really interesting facts and all of that, but also so much heart and emotion and feeling, and I just loved the blend of the two of them. And Everything is Tuberculosis, if you have been watching, if you watch any of his like TikToks or YouTube videos or anything like that, he has been a bit obsessed with tuberculosis for a while, and he has written a non-fictional book about how everything is tuberculosis. And I'm very interested because he's constantly like advocating for like cheaper testing and all of this, and I'm so interested to see all of the stuff and all of the insights he has learned, because I'm sure it is going to be very, as I said, like with the Anthropocene Reviewed, very interesting factually, but also very much like an emotional, like people-centered story. Then in April I only have one book, which should I really be putting this on, but that is Great Big Beautiful World by Emily Henry. And like I haven't actually read Funny Story yet. I'm waiting for my library to get it, but my library does not seem to be getting it, which is very upsetting to me. And so like I'm probably not going to read that until I read Funny Story, but it also, if my library gets that before it gets Funny Story, I will probably read it. I've read 3 of her books now. I've really enjoyed. One of them I loved, one of them I liked, one of them I was okay with. So I'm not like completely obsessed with her like a lot of people, but I'm very fussy about romance anyway. And also the one I like seems to be like a lot of people's least favorite. I love Happy Place. I loved it. Absolutely ate it up. And it's a lot of people's least favorite of hers. And I don't even know what this is about, but I'm just like, I'm going to get to all of her romance books eventually because I like them. Or at least I don't hate them, which is a win. So, as I said, doesn't make sense for me to really be putting this on my anticipated list. Probably not, but I'm putting it on anyway, so. Now we're into May, and in May we have Meal Adventures, I believe. I think this might be a republishing of 2 short stories that Martha Wells wrote, and these are actually YA, which YA isn't really my thing as much anymore, but I do love Martha Wells, so I will read them. I literally just saw it on Twitter. I was like, more Martha Wells, because we'll be getting to another one later. I was like, yay! And then I was like, YA. I was like, As far as I know, it's very like adventurous and all of that, and sometimes you do just need some fun YA, and so I'm hoping that will be this, and I can save it for a good moment. Then we have Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Django Wexler, 2 in Dark Lord Davy. So the first one is How to Become Dark Lord and Die Trying. I did originally give this like a low 4 stars, but I have actually recently gone back and edited my entire list of my rankings of the year. That will be coming out in January sometime. And I just realized like this did not fit where I had put it, and so it is like I did bump it down to a 3 because I did just have some problems with it. I do recommend the audiobook. I think it helped with the humor a bit because like I had to like read a chapter, take a break, read a chapter, take a break. And that is not how I usually enjoy reading books, and so I think I was just a little nice with it, to be honest. And I know also some people had some issues with how like bisexuality was portrayed, because it's very much like, I guess, kind of like the trope of, well, you'll sleep with anyone. And I can definitely see why people have an issue with that. I didn't mind it too much because I know he has written really good sapphic representation before in like his other series. So I am just taking it as like, hey, sometimes you do just want to sleep with everyone. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt with that, but if you don't want to do that, I totally understand that. But yeah, so that is the sequel to this. So in this one, we follow Davy, and it's like stuck in almost this video game-esque kind of a thing, and she continuously dies. She has been told that she has to defeat the Dark Lord. She has tried hundreds of times. Every single time she dies painfully, and she's had enough, and so she decides, if you can't beat him, become him. So she decides to become the Dark Lord. One really huge nitpick, which is she was constantly saying how like it had been so long since she had been human that she forgot things, but then she would make like really niche like Star Wars references, and it's like, you keep saying that you don't know what the human world is like anymore, and then you make a Star Wars reference. Then we're on to June, and in June we have Bury Our Bones in Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab has been talking about this book for a long time. It has gone by 2 different like working titles. So one has been Bones and the other one has been Toxic Lesbian Vampires. I actually went to the tour event for the Fragile Threads of Power, and she kind of spoke about this, and she was like, it's in a way it's like the same but opposite of Addie LaRue for her. So once she had kind of finished Addie LaRue, which is very much, you know, a story about time and, you know, wanting to be remembered and all of that, she obviously wanted, you know, she was going back to, you know, Threads of Power and all of that, and she just kind of wanted to have like, I guess, something similar to those kind of themes, like just boiling away in there. And that's kind of how this story came to be. So I think kind of like similar enough themes, but explored in a very different way. So intrigued to see what will happen. I do hate the yellow text on it. Like, I don't mind the cover. I think, especially since like I know like the story of like how it's kind of similar but different to Addie LaRue. Like the flowers that are like on both of them, because also on Addie LaRue's cover, you know, there's forget-me-nots. So like I love that. But the yellow text, ugly, 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 ugly. And then also in June, we have Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. So Ashley Poston is like probably my go-to. And Emily Henry. Those are the 2 romance authors that I feel safe with. Like Ashley Poston, every single one of hers, all 3 of them have been 4 stars for me. And Emily Henry, as I said, I've had a 5, a 3, and a 4. So they all average out to 4. And so I read every single one of her romance books basically as soon as it comes out. This one, Sounds Like Love, I'm gonna guess that has something to do with music. Obviously, like most of her books, actually no, I was about to say, her first book, kind of in the bookish world. Her second book is actually about like cooking, though there is also a publishing plot line in there. And then her third one, the characters get stuck in a like story. So this one, I'm gonna guess that there's actually like music somehow involved, which is interesting. There could still be writing though, let's be honest. And then we have one which probably should not be on the list. If you haven't noticed, all of these are like sequels or authors I've talked about and read and love. And then we have this one, which I have read from this author before, but I didn't really love her books. I gave them like 3 and a 2, I think. And that is The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst, which I do believe this is technically a sequel to The Spell Shop, but I'm like, I think they're more companion novels. But please tell me if you think I have to read The Spell Shop first, because I think they're different characters. But I saw the synopsis and I saw the cover and I was like, I want to read that. I think it has something to do with like a statue like coming to life. I was like, yes, I want to read that. As I said, the cover is absolutely gorgeous. I think like, it's like the greeny purple kind of thing, like works for me way better than like The Spell Shop is kind of like a bit more yellow. And so, as I said, this is an outlier because it doesn't fit with like everything else. You know, the authors I've read and loved before. I have read the Queens of Renthia from her. I gave the first 2 3 stars. I gave the last one a 2 star. This are adult and these are cozy, whereas like the Queens of Renthia, it's actually kind of dark at points, especially for our YA series. So like, outlier. But also, I really like this cover. I need it. Is The Executioners 3 by Susan Dennard. So this is, I can't remember, I believe this was actually originally a Wattpad story from Susan Dennard. And it has been rewritten and reworked and re-edited, and it is now coming out again. I think in the UK she's doing it with Daphne Press again. So I'm going to guess it's going to be very similar vibes to like The Luminaries. Again, I'm not the biggest YA reader, but I have read and loved some from Susan Dennard in the past, so I am going to put this on the anticipated releases, and hopefully there'll be a time when I like just need something quick and easy to read, and then this will be like the perfect book to read. In October, we have Queen Demon by Martha Wells. So, right there, that purple one is The Witch King by Martha Wells. This is the sequel. Originally, we were told that The Witch King was a standalone. I read it. It absolutely stands alone. If you want to read it as a standalone, that is fine. It does definitely end where you could see, you know, there's so much potential with this world and with these characters and what they could do. And I loved it. I know not everyone did. I seem to be the only person who was like, oh my god, this is like one of my favorite books of the year. I ate it up. It absolutely worked for me. It was written for me. She wrote it for me. I loved it. And I read it and I was like, I know that there's not enough fantasy standalones. And I know that she said it was a standalone, but oh my god, I would love to spend more time with these characters. And then this year, out of nowhere, I just see Queen Demon. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then I click into it. And it's a sequel. The Witch King follows Kai, and he is a demon. And he wakes up in a tomb of water, which kind of stops his powers a bit, and he then goes and finds his friend, and his friend's wife is missing, and so the two of them need to figure out how they got in here, get revenge for whoever put them in there, and find the wife. And that's basically it. Like, it really is. Like, you think, oh, the revenge thing is going to be very important. No. The wife thing is the most important. And I personally love that. But the last thing that does currently like have a release date on Goodreads is Witchlight by Susan Dennard. So this is the final book in the Witchland series. This series definitely has lost steam, and I totally understand why. I mean, obviously she had a baby, and then just publishing kept kind of screwing her over, and oh, we want this has to be 1 book instead of 2 books, and like she had a bad time with this. And so like I totally understand it, but also like a lot of I think momentum in this series has kind of been crushed for me. Blood Witch was one of my favorite books. It is probably one of my favorite YA books of all time. Blood Witch is so good. I hope that it's a really satisfying sequel, a really satisfying conclusion. I think that there is a lot of characters and a lot of plot lines that need to be wrapped up, which makes me a little afraid. But I was actually one of the people who did enjoy Witch Shadow. I know a lot of people didn't. It did work for me. I did obviously have a couple of nitpicks, and it wasn't as good as Blood Witch was for me, but I did still really love it. But obviously it's been even longer since that came out. But I hope that just means she's really been able to take time to perfect it. Sorry for the probably slight change of angle. I've tried to put it back where it was, but I did not succeed. Anyway, it just cut me off, which is rude. So I believe the last one that I was talking about was Witchlight by Susan Dennard. I don't know where in the middle of my spiel it cut me off, but it did cut me off. I'm very excited and also very terrified of it because it has been just so long coming. That is the last one that I think is at least supposedly announced. I do have kind of 4 more in varying stages of maybe. I guess the one that I am most sure about is Rosemary Time by Olivia Atwater. So I have all of Olivia Atwater's displayed nicely there. So if you didn't know, she has written the Regency era fairy tales, which are the blue ones, Small Miracles. She originally self-published the Regency era fairy tales, but then they got traditionally published by Orbit, and then she went back to traditionally publishing for Small Miracles and also for The Witch Would Not, which The Witch Would Not is the first book in the Victorian era fairy tales. So very similar, and like same timeline and all of that of the Regency era fairy tales, but obviously we've now entered the Victorian period, so it's a bit more dark and gothic and all of that. So if that's more of your vibe, but it's still the same old fairies causing mischief, romance plot lines, and the way Witch Would Not ended. What? Well, Rosemary Time is going to be the second book in this series. I do believe that this is the next project that she's going to be working on, and she does plan on it coming out sometime in 2025. She just doesn't know when. Then I don't think I have heard anything about another Percy Jackson book. But I find it hard that there wouldn't be, but maybe like he has been doing other things, I don't know. Because obviously we have the original Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, then we're going to continue to write more in the world, so the Heroes of Olympus, Trials of Apollo, all of that, and then obviously the Disney Plus show came out and all of that, and he basically then went back to the Percy Jackson and the Olympians, original like first person Percy Jackson, and he has written 2 more onto that, so the Trials of the Gods and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess, and they are definitely a little more light and fun, and they're not very serious. They all follow Percy Jackson, and he's trying to get 3 recommendation letters to get into college, and obviously we have 2, we need a 3rd recommendation letter. As I said, the first 2 came out in September of 2023, 2024, so like maybe, but like also I haven't heard anything, whereas this time last year we had heard about the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. Also, I'm not sure, am I anticipating it? I actually really did not like the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. There were just some things in it that really gave me the ick, and I'm like, maybe you need a better editor, or just someone who's not a yes man, because I feel like that's what the book read as, was so fan servicey, but not in a good way. Everyone is very mean to Percy and constantly treats him as an idiot, including Percy, and that's never actually been the case. There's this weird obsession with them being parents, despite the fact they're 17 under these books. They are definitely trying to Hermione Grangerify Annabeth Chase, and that has never actually been who her character is. Yes, she is very intelligent and wise and all of that, but she has never been like, I guess, emotionally stunted, let's say, the way that Hermione was. Like, that was never her character. She was very liked in the first book. She was very popular in camp. Yes, she's not maybe familiar with the outside world, but they're trying to like repaint all that, and like, I don't like it. And then they're trying to like nearly like soften her up. Oh, she's so motherly now and that she's getting older, and it's real gross. This book didn't feel like a team. It felt like Annabeth and her 2 psychics, and they can't do anything without her because they are brainless idiots. It was very icky. Last 2, these ones I'm not so sure about. And so that is the second book in the Amina Al-Sarafi series. I have the first one there. So this is a like pirate adventure story where we follow a woman who is retired. She's finished with that life, and then an old woman basically shows up at her house, kind of bribes her, kind of blackmails her, and so she sets off on one last quest to get the gang back together to find this woman's like grandchild. And I really enjoyed the first book. I was about to say I didn't love it as much as I loved The City of Brass, but in fairness, I didn't actually love the first book in the City of Brass series. I loved the sequels for the City of Brass series. So I probably actually liked it roughly the same amount, maybe slightly less, but they were both still 4 stars. I just said I'd put it on here because if it does get announced, I will be very excited. And then the final one is Electo the Ninth. I feel like this is another book that just continuously gets pushed back, and everyone is kind of just, every year I feel like I see that number on Goodreads because it just says like 2023, 2024, 2025. I feel like it just continuously changes. I'm not sure whether there's been any more updates on how the writing is going or anything like that. So I have no idea how that's going. I do want to get to the 4th book whenever it comes out. Again, I probably have to reread them all first, but as I said, I'm not super optimistic about this coming out because I haven't heard anything about it, but maybe. Also, I know that there are so many other ones that are coming out that are not on this. I like, sorry, don't judge me, because like obviously I know, is it like The Devils by Joe Abercrombie? Samantha Shannon has a new book that she just announced that I think is coming out near the end of next year. I think it's another prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree. I will absolutely not be reading that. That's it, does not work for me whatsoever, but I know a lot of people will be anticipating that. Obviously there's going to be the new Hunger Games prequel. I probably will read that, but I wouldn't necessarily count it as one of my anticipated. I've never been like the #1 Hunger Games fan. Let me know if any of these are your anticipated releases, if there's any that I should keep an eye out on based on what I do look forward to. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.